The bright lights of the Kelly Clarkson show sparkled across the stage as cheers filled the air. The crowd was full of energy, holding signs, clapping, and shouting Jennifer Lopez's name. The world-famous singer, actress, and philanthropist stepped onto the set with her usual radiant smile, wearing a soft white suit and gold heels. Kelly Clarkson welcomed her warmly with a hug. The two looked like old friends, chatting and laughing easily as the show began its live broadcast around the world. Jennifer was there to talk about her new humanitarian foundation, a project focused on helping underprivileged girls gain access to education and healthcare. She also wanted to speak about gender equity and the emotional journey that led her. To start the initiative, the first few minutes were light and inspiring. Kelly complimented Jennifer's courage, her fashion sense, and her continued success. The audience laughed and clapped. Everything seemed perfect on the surface, but then something changed. Kelly leaned forward, her voice softer but sharper, and asked, "Jennifer, there were reports a few years ago about you having a classified meeting with some kind of defense group or agency. Something about global media influence. You never spoke about it." Jennifer blinked, her smile fading just slightly. "Oh, you mean the brief I received from a nonprofit think tank? That was nothing classified." Kelly chuckled, but didn't let it go. But a think tank connected to a federal defense program? I mean, people have talked. Jen, leaks, meetings. Your name came up." The audience laughed awkwardly. Jennifer paused. Her fingers adjusted her lapel slightly. She kept her voice calm, but her tone had changed. "People talk, Kelly. That doesn't make it true." Kelly smiled, but her eyes narrowed. "Okay, but you were in Washington 5 times in 3 months? And some documents were leaked last year. Well, your initials matched." Jennifer looked directly at Kelly. Her voice was suddenly cold, precise. "They didn't tell me everything, only enough to become useful." For a split second, the audience was silent. Even the camera crew hesitated. The smile on Kelly's face froze. She blinked. "What does that mean?" she asked, half laughing, trying to recover the energy, like, useful. How? Jennifer didn't answer. Instead, she slowly took off her mic, stood up from the chair, and looked out at the audience. She whispered something barely caught on the camera feed. It was never about the music. Then she walked off the stage. The audience gasped. Few people clapped awkwardly, unsure if it was a joke. Kelly looked around, confused, her producers already rushing onto the stage, whispering in her ear. The broadcast cut to a commercial, but something had already happened, something the viewers didn't see. At that very moment, deep inside a secure communications center at Fort Meade, Maryland, a computer screen flashed red. Voice keyword had been activated. Operation Glass Halo. System logged the sentence, "They didn't tell me everything, only enough to become useful." This phrase was part of an old defense protocol, something from over a decade ago, buried and weighed, and declassified only in small pieces. No one had used the phrase publicly in years. No civilian was supposed to know it. And now it had been spoken live on television by one of the most recognized celebrities in the world. Inside the NSA, alarms quietly buzzed. Team of analysts was pulled into a closed room. The director of Cyber Intercept sat down and watched the playback. They didn't know how Jennifer Lopez knew the phrase or what she was trying to say, but the implications were serious. Someone in the room asked the question out loud. Was this an accident or a warning? Back in the studio, Kelly Clarkson returned to the screen. Her smile looked nervous now, forced. Jennifer had to step away, she said. All sent her good energy. But outside the camera's view, her producer was already on the phone. And far away, someone else was watching the broadcast, a figure inside a hidden bunker, who whispered the words, "She's remembering." The signal had been sent, and the game had just begun. The moment Jennifer Lopez walked off the stage, everything changed behind the scenes. The studio lights were still glowing, and the audience was being entertained by backup music. But the energy had shifted. Kelly Clarkson looked shaken, though she tried to cover it up with a bright smile. "Let's give her a minute," she said lightly, but her eyes darted toward the producers off stage. Jennifer's exit wasn't in the script. Backstage, chaos erupted. Her publicist was already on the phone, speaking in a low, fast voice. Jennifer stood quietly in the hallway, eyes fixed on the floor. She wasn't angry, not exactly. She looked alert, as if something inside her had been triggered. An assistant approached her gently. "Are you okay?" Jennifer looked up, her voice calm but distant. "Tell the driver to take the back route. No phones, no GPS." The assistant blinked. "Excuse me, no GPS?" she repeated. Across the city, at the NSA Field Center in Manhattan, the alert marked Operation Glass Halo had reached a priority status. The phrase was logged, tagged, and matched against encrypted files from a dormant but not erased archive. Only 6 people in the building had clearance to access the full history of Glass Halo, a covert media manipulation strategy that had been initiated during the post-9/11 era, aimed at shaping global narratives through entertainment channels. One analyst, a junior agent named Rowley, stared at the screen. "Why would Jennifer Lopez use that phrase?" he whispered. "Where would she even hear it?" His supervisor, Agent Tyla Hassan, didn't answer immediately. She stared at the transcript. Jennifer's exact quote: "They didn't tell me. Everything only enough to become useful." "That's a pattern phrase," Tila muttered, "used in echo profiles." Rowley looked confused. "Echo what?" "Echo profiles," she said again. "Subjects flagged as accidental assets. People who were exposed to classified elements without full context. Celebrities, activists, sometimes journalists, used to send messages without even knowing they were doing it." Rowley leaned in. "So you're saying Lopez might have been part of a program and didn't know it?" Tyla didn't answer. Back in Jennifer's private vehicle, the silence was tense. She stared out the window. Her assistant, seated next to her, finally asked, "What happened back there?" Jennifer slowly turned to her. 5 years ago, I visited a children's hospital in D.C. One of the doctors there wasn't a doctor. He worked for a branch of something else. Do you mean government?" Jennifer nodded. "He told me the way media shapes emotion could either destroy or protect entire generations. They were experimenting with something, a method of emotional targeting through pop culture. They showed me graphs, footage, even scripts that were altered before being approved for streaming. I didn't sign anything. But they said I would be contacted later." Her assistant stared at her, speechless. "They never did," Jennifer whispered, "until today." That phrase, glass halo, I never said it out loud before. I don't know why I said it now. Back at the NSA, an emergency protocol was being put into place. A digital warrant was issued to scan metadata connected to Jennifer's communications over the past 72 hours. Every email, every call, every app message. Rowley spoke again. "Sir, there's something weird. Yesterday she had a private call with someone in Geneva. The number's encrypted and bounces off 6 different locations. But the message metadata is tagged with a dormant UN frequency, used for diplomatic emergencies." Tila's eyes narrowed. "And it was a 32-second call," he replied. "No audio recorded. That it ended with one outbound code phrase. Mirror signal alpha." Tila stood up. "That's not just a warning. That's an activation." In the studio, Kelly Clarkson was in her dressing room alone. A small secure envelope sat on her vanity table. She stared at it, hesitant. It had been slipped into her dressing room earlier that day, anonymous. She had thought it was fan mail or some minor PR item. But now she remembered what was written. In small black ink on the back, "If she says glass halo, do not ask more questions." Kelly had ignored it. She thought it was a prank. Now she wasn't sure. She slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph, a surveillance image, grainy, black and white. A younger Jennifer Lopez stepping out of a dark building near the Pentagon. Behind her was the same man from the children's hospital. And standing with him was someone wearing an intelligence badge with a blurred name. Kelly stared at the photo for a long time. Then she picked up her phone. Across the ocean, in a villa outside Lisbon, a retired intelligence officer named Victor Selwyn received an encrypted message on his satellite phone. Glass halo breached. Subject initiated. Falcon may remember. Victor's hand trembled slightly. As he poured a glass of brandy, "God help us," he muttered. "It's happening again." And across the world, those who had once buried Project Glass Halo began to stir. Because Jennifer Lopez hadn't just walked off a talk show. She had reopened a sealed operation, one that had been waiting, watching, and now waking. The storm that began in a brightly lit TV studio was now spreading across intelligence networks, private diplomatic channels, and secret archives buried deep within governments. Jennifer Lopez was back in her home, the curtains drawn, her security, teams stationed at every entrance, but she felt far from safe. She sat alone in her study, the room dimly lit, holding a small encrypted flash drive. She had kept it hidden in a jewelry box for 5 years, untouched, unopened, until now. The voice on her mind was still clear. You'll know when to look. At the NSA Manhattan Field Unit, Agent Tyla Hassan was working without pause. Project Glass Halo was no ordinary classified file. It had been buried after a scandal nearly took down to global governments. It involved more than surveillance. It was an experiment in emotional control, narrative shaping, and mass persuasion. Celebrities were never told what they were involved in. They were guided subtly through interviews, invitations, partnerships, and scripts. Only a few, like Lopez, were shown glimpses. But no one was supposed to say Glass Halo on a live broadcast. At CIA headquarters in Langley, a Situation Room screen blinked with an incoming visual from Lisbon. Victor Selwyn, the retired field analyst now flagged as re-engaged, stared directly into the camera. "I told you this would happen." He said, "You didn't bury it deep enough." A woman on the other side, Deputy Director Mia Lennox, didn't blink. "Why now, Victor? Why her?" Victor leaned back, because Glass Halo wasn't just about controlling narrative. It was about building memory triggers in public figures. She remembered the phrase, "Someone activated her." Mia looked stunned. "You're saying she's been programmed?" "No," Victor replied. "She was shown too much. Her memory is real, but her response may have been designed carefully, years ago." In Los Angeles, Jennifer stared at the flash drive, now open on her laptop. The files were heavily encrypted, but she found a single unlocked video, shaky footage, no date, filmed. In a dark room. A man sat across from her, the same man from the children's hospital. His voice was calm, controlled. "Jennifer, if you're watching this, you were exposed to Tier 3 information. That makes you a living variable. You were never supposed to be briefed." But high-value media assets were being quietly tested for their ability to carry encoded messaging. "You passed." He leaned forward. "Your platform could trigger mass psychological shifts. That's why. You were shown fragments of Glass Halo. That's why we monitored your career path. If you're watching this, something has changed. Something has breached containment." The screen went black. Jennifer sat in silence. Then her security intercom buzzed. "There's someone here to see you," her guard said. "He says he's from Geneva. Diplomatic credentials." Jennifer stood up immediately. "Let him in." Moments later, a tall man in a gray suit entered. His demeanor was calm, but he had the look of someone who had been in dangerous rooms his entire life. "Ms. Lopez," he said. "My name is Marcus Varelli." I'm with a neutral agency that operates outside NATO and the UN. We monitor long dormant programs like Glass Halo. You've triggered a global response. Jennifer didn't flinch. What happens now? You've reopened more than an old experiment, Marcus said. You've revived a Cold War-era strategy, one that didn't just involve America. There were others. Russia, China, even the Vatican. Jennifer's voice was cold. "Okay, and what did they all want?" "To control what people feel," he said. "Not think, feel. Emotion is more powerful than logic. If you can shape that, you can shape nations without war." She looked away. "Why me?" she asked. "Why did I remember?" Marcus hesitated, then pulled out a sealed envelope. Inside was a photo. A teenage Jennifer Lopez at a music event in Washington, D.C., but the photo had been cropped. In the corner, barely visible, was the same doctor from the children's hospital, standing beside an older woman in military uniform, her badge reading U.S. Psychological Operations Division. "You were exposed earlier than you think," Marcus said. Back in Washington, Agent Tyler was briefing Director Mia via encrypted satellite. "The public still thinks she just walked off a talk show," Tyler said. "But now foreign signals are moving. We've picked up chatter from Moscow. They've activated something called Echo Bramble. And a satellite tagged to Chinese intelligence has moved into low orbit over Los Angeles." Mia closed her eyes. "Glass Halo was never shut down," she whispered, "just rebranded into smaller pieces, more subtle weapons. And now one of the original carriers is awake," Tyler said. "And the world is watching." Mia paused, then spoke the one sentence that none of them wanted to say aloud. "If this spreads, we'll lose control of narrative supremacy. Not just here, globally." In Lisbon, Victor Selwyn finished sending out an old encrypted list asset archive, Echo Tier. It held names of others, like Jennifer, artists, journalists, broadcasters. All exposed, all silent. Until now, he lit a cigarette with trembling hands. The list had been untouched for decades, but he had always known someday someone would say the wrong word on the wrong channel at the wrong time. And now, the world was listening. Jennifer Lopez stared at the photograph Marcus had handed her, an image from decades ago. But suddenly, clear as glass, the teenage version of herself, smiling, holding a mic at a youth talent festival. And in the background, the man from the children's hospital, flanked by a woman in military uniform. The insignia on the patch was blurred, but Marcus confirmed what she already suspected. "That's PSYOP," he said. "US Army Psychological Operations." Jennifer's fingers trembled. "I was 16. I thought I was singing for a charity event." "You were," Marcus said. "But the event was also part of a long-term civilian influence program. You were one of the profiles." She looked at him, trying to understand. Profiles for what? To see which cultural figures could carry emotional load. "You see, Jennifer, not every celebrity changes minds. But some people make. Others feel something powerful. That's what Glass Halo studied. The science of influence." Jennifer sat back, reeling from the realization. "I was never supposed to know this." "No," Marcus agreed. "But now that you do, everything is shifting." In Washington, the president's chief of staff was on a secure line with Langley and Fort Meade. The words "Operation Glass Halo Wide Alert" were stamped across multiple screens. On one of them, an AI-powered threat map was flashing. Read across the coast, spot activity, misinformation spikes, and coordinated meme campaigns were accelerating online. And Jennifer Lopez's name was trending in 87 countries. "She's become a psychological trigger," one analyst said. "People don't even understand why they're reacting to her, but they are, strongly." At that moment, the U.S. Defense Secretary walked in. "We need to pull her in now, before someone else does." But someone already had. Back in Los Angeles, Marcus leaned forward, his voice calm but urgent. There's more. Operation Glass Halo didn't just study us targets. Other countries watched us, copied us, built their own programs. Russia called it Zemlyan. China tested something called Red Whisper. Even the Vatican ran a covert unit named Cruximativa, studying how sermons, hymns, and music shaped mass sentiment during wars. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. Why would the Vatican be involved? Because if you control the soul, Marcus said, you don't need to control the body. Jennifer stood up, paced the room. So what do they want from me now? Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, to say something. She turned. Say what? Anything. You're being watched closely. If you speak, millions will listen. They need to know if you're still carrying the trigger, or if you've broken it. Jennifer's breath caught. What if I say the wrong thing? Marcus looked grim. Then you could spark a global information cascade. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, in a data center beneath the Swiss Alps, a red alert rang out. The private firm Viridium, which handled DeepMind AI modeling for multiple governments, had picked up a strange pattern. Emotional volatility metrics were spiking worldwide, and the common factor was not content. It was presence. Jennifer Lopez's face, her voice, her expressions were lighting up neuroemotional circuits in viewers more than any political event in the last 5 years. Something old was stirring, not a new algorithm, but a human response, they thought, had been buried. Back in Lisbon, Victor Selwyn took a deep breath and spoke into his encrypted line. Activate Vault 2, pull the original schema files. All of them. A voice on the other side protested. Sir, those protocols haven't been open since 1998. They should have never been shut, Victor said. She was exposed to early, and now she's remembering out of sequence. In Los Angeles, Jennifer's phone buzzed. A private message. No name, just a location. A small studio in Topanga Canyon, old, quiet, isolated. She looked at Marcus. Oh, they want me too. Speak. I think I will. Are you sure? He asked. Jennifer nodded. Not for them, for myself. An hour later, Jennifer stood inside a soundproof studio. Alone, a single camera facing her. No producers, no scripts. Just her. She pressed record. It's been quiet for a long time. Part of it was my choice, but part of it wasn't. I've been shown pieces of things, pieces I didn't ask for. Pieces of something designed to guide how we feel, not what we think, not what we believe, just how we react. Her voice was steady, her eyes intense. Jennifer didn't sleep that night. The studio was quiet again. Her message had gone out. But what followed wasn't peace or relief. It was silence, heavy and waiting, like the air before a storm. Her phone had been turned off, Marcus insisted. On that, too many signals. Too many embedded listeners. But even in isolation, she felt the shift. It wasn't just public attention now. It was interest from powerful entities whose names were never meant to be spoken aloud. At 5:13 a.m., Marcus entered the room holding a sealed envelope. You've been summoned, he said. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. By who? He didn't answer directly. Just handed her the envelope. Inside was a location, a private intelligence compound known as the Field Room, built under a decommissioned airbase in Nevada. Accessed only by invitation, it served as an unacknowledged neutral ground. A place where off-the-books conversations happened between officials who, publicly, didn't even know each other existed. You'll be debriefed by a panel, Marcus explained. Mixed backgrounds, CIA, NATO, civilian black op liaisons. Possibly even foreign observers under non-disclosure pacts. Why me? Jennifer asked quietly. I didn't create any. Of this, I didn't even know. That's exactly why they want you. You're the only subject who broke through without external prompting. No handlers, no hypnosis, no prompts. It's just exposure and memory. Jennifer swallowed hard. So I'm a test case. Marcus nodded. You're also a threat.
Okay.
By late afternoon, she was flown by a private unmarked jet to Nevada. The compound was buried into the rock, miles from any known settlement. As they descended into the main chamber, Jennifer saw glass walls, rows of servers humming quietly, and a circular meeting space filled with a strange mix of uniforms and plainclothes analysts. A woman introduced herself simply as Director Halvorsen. You understand what Glass Halo was meant to be? Jennifer nodded. To test emotional influence, to control responses without controlling thoughts. Correct, Halvorsen replied. But it became more. At some point, we stopped studying the audience and began shaping the influencers. Jennifer looked straight at her. You tried to rewire me. No, said a voice from across the room. An older man, worn and stern, stepped forward. We tried to prepare you. You were always going to rise, but just made sure certain inputs aligned. Lyrics, roles, brands, everything nudged gently. Never forced, never obvious. That's the brilliance of it. Jennifer's voice cracked. Made me a mirror. He nodded. And now that mirror is cracked, which means people are seeing through it. That's a problem. Silence. Halvorsen took over again. When you said the words on the Kelly Clarkson show, they didn't. Tell me everything only enough to become useful. You triggered a layered phrase. That sentence is mapped into multiple language analysis engines. Jennifer's pulse quickened. So I tripped a wire. Halvorsen, you tripped a network. Decades old, auto-reactive, and not entirely in our control anymore. Jennifer leaned forward, her voice sharp. What happens now? The older man folded his arms. We want you to speak again carefully, deliberately. Calm the world down. Tell them you were misled, that you misspoke. She shook her head. No. Halvorsen's tone turned cold. Then understand what happens if you don't. This isn't just about national security anymore. Multiple foreign influence models were built off your patterns. If you continue to destabilize the emotional field, others will respond aggressively. Jennifer stood up. I'm not your puppet. Not anymore. Before they could reply, Marcus entered the chamber, visibly tense. We have a situation, he said. Viridium A. I just picked up a spike. Coordinated disinformation waves across 14 countries. They're trying to turn Jennifer into a symbol. Freedom fighter, truth speaker, rebel. They're hijacking her image and pushing it into their own narratives. Halvorsen looked stunned. Who's doing it? Marcus replied grimly. Everyone. Alt networks, religious cells, foreign trolls, even rogue elements from our own agencies. Jennifer turned to them both. You see? That's what happens when you train people to follow faces instead of facts. Elsewhere in the world, Jennifer's original video was being repackaged. Translated, dubbed, memed. Some channels called her a hero. Others a traitor. In Brazil, a populist candidate used her quote to rally crowds. In Iran, reformist groups whispered her name through encrypted apps. In France, anonymous messages declared, "The halo has broken." Choose emotion freely. But deep in a Russian server farm, a far more dangerous program had been activated. A counter-project, Mere Chasm. Its mission to destabilize every influencer. Modeled after Project Glass Halo. Use emotional signals against them. Ruin trust, create chaos. Jennifer's image was now a weapon, and the world was about to decide whether to worship it or destroy it. As the meeting at the field room ended, Halvorsen looked at Jennifer with a different kind of fear. You've become what we never wanted, she whispered. A wild card. Jennifer looked at the glass walls around her and said calmly, No, I've become human again. In a military-grade control room beneath Berlin, 6 intelligence officers sat in silence, watching 20 different global broadcasts simultaneously. Jennifer Lopez's face was on all of them. Her walk-off from the Kelly Clarkson show was still being dissected, twisted, retranslated. Video compilation had gone viral in 47 countries, edited to make her look like she had exposed a global psychological operation. The algorithm didn't care what was true. It only cared what got shared. Colonel Petra Lang, head of the EU Cyber Defense Front, leaned forward and gave the order. Initiate Delta Sweep. All Halo Origin influencer profiles go under immediate sentiment watch. An officer hesitated. That's over 3,800 personalities. Worldwide, Lang's voice was ice. Then start with the top 10. And scrub everything connected to Operation Glass Halo. No loose memory, no clever remixes. I want the net clean before this turns into something we can't walk back. From across the Atlantic in Washington, D.C., Jennifer sat in a secure black SUV. Marcus was beside her, watching encrypted feeds from an underground relay. He looked exhausted. His phone buzzed. He checked the message. It's happening, he said quietly. Jennifer didn't need to ask what. She already knew. They're coming for the others, aren't they? She asked. Marcus nodded. Anyone they think was part of it. Anyone who might speak out. Ex-agents. Retired handlers. A few old musicians. Even a journalist who wrote one too many questions. Jennifer leaned her head back against the seat. I was supposed to be an artist. I just wanted to tell stories. To move people. Marcus turned to her. You did. It's exactly why they picked you. The car stopped. It arrived at a private townhouse in Foggy Bottom. A safe house wired with soundproof panels, shielded walls, and off-grid. Power. Inside were three people Jennifer had never met before, but recognized immediately from shadowy references in the past. An older woman in a navy scarf spoke first. My name doesn't matter, she said, but I was part of the original Mirror. Study team, we warned the agency this would happen. You're not a glitch, Jennifer. You're the natural result of pushing empathy through engineered channels for 20 years. Another man chimed in. They always believed that if they could control the emotional resonance of a voice, they could guide entire populations. That's what Glass Halo was. You weren't the only one. But you're the first who refused to cooperate after triggering. Jennifer swallowed. So this was never about entertainment. It was about influence. The woman nodded. Entertainment was just the delivery system. You were encoded with subtle prompts, rhythmic, tonal, behavioral. That's why you always felt like your instincts weren't entirely your own. They weren't. Jennifer took a breath, processing the horror. They want me to apologize on air, she said. Backtrack. Soften the damage. The man looked grave. If you do that now, you'll give them control again. If you don't, they'll paint you as unstable or worse, dangerous. Marcus added they may try to vanish you completely. Quietly, the world's already primed to believe you're unraveling. Jennifer's hands shook slightly. So, what's the play? The woman placed a folder in front of her. This is the truth, not the full story. We don't have that, but enough to crack the shell from inside. Documents, dates, experiment logs. A signed brief from someone high up in naval intelligence admitting the project exceeded ethical limits. We've been collecting it in secret. If you want to strike back, this is how. Jennifer stared at the folder. Leak it. No. Marcus said, not yet. We don't do it the way they expect. Not through chaos, not through rumor. We'll let you tell it calmly, publicly, with full context. Jennifer's voice was steady now, on my own terms. The woman smiled faintly. That's what they fear the most. 2 days later, a private signal was intercepted by multiple agencies around the world. A calendar entry. No details. Just a time, a platform, a name. Live broadcast. Jennifer Lopez, this is what they didn't tell you, the world froze. Networks scrambled. The White House was briefed. Foreign ministers in Canada, Germany, and Japan ordered live translations prepared. Silicon Valley teams ran back-end protocols to prepare for traffic surges. The NSA's eye defense system flagged the event as Category Amber. In a secure line, Director Halvorsen, still inside the field room, received one chilling update. She's going to tell them everything. And this time, they'll believe her. The screen lit up across the globe. Televisions in dim living rooms, smartphones in bustling metros, projectors in war rooms. No logos, no dramatic music, just a single image. Jennifer Lopez, seated at a plain black desk, facing the camera. Her hair was tied back, her face bare, her voice clear. "This is not about entertainment anymore," she began. "This is about truth, not the one shaped by ratings or filtered through algorithms, but the one hidden beneath decades of silence." In those first seconds, over 61 million people tuned in. Within 5 minutes, the number had crossed 100 million. Governments across time zones issued emergency response codes. AI moderation bots on major platforms struggled to identify whether to flag, censor, or boost the feed. Some failed. Others simply froze. Jennifer continued, slowly unwrapping a story that didn't sound like a conspiracy, but like a confession crafted with forensic precision. She spoke of Operation Glass Halo, of how her voice and presence were studied, not for performance, but for pattern manipulation, how emotions could be simulated not just on screen, but inside the audience. "They used us, artists, singers, public figures, as carriers," she said, "not of messages, but moods, not propaganda, but mood programming. The intent was to stabilize nations, but the cost was control." She showed portions of documents, classified memos, psychological research, redacted names that still hinted at authority. She didn't name countries, not yet, but the implications were there. Then she said it. "Some of you watching were part of this, not as targets, but as instruments. Without your knowledge, without your consent." Inside the NSA's Field Room Director Halvorsen stood, motionless. His team had ceased trying to cut the feed 10 minutes ago. Every attempt triggered further auto shares across encrypted layers of the internet. It was as if Jennifer's message had been engineered to ride the very system meant to contain her. "She's using the broadcast lattice as a signal amplifier," one technician muttered. "This isn't just a leak. This is a relay event." In Moscow, a senior intelligence analyst turned away from the screen and whispered, "She's triggering the dormant cells." In Tel Aviv, a neural analytics team saw the emotional resonance curve spike in real time. "Whatever she says next," the lead scientist warned, "will define public sentiment for the next 5 years, globally." Back on screen, Jennifer leaned forward slightly. "I don't want revenge. I want recovery," she said. "For those like me who woke up one day and realized they'd been used not for what they knew, but for what they felt." Said it. "I won't name the agents, not yet. But I have names. If anything happens to me after tonight, they'll be released. Automatically, worldwide." That sentence sent a shockwave through global intelligence. It meant she had built in Deadman triggers automatic release protocols stored off-grid. The intelligence community called it black letter insurance. It was the final card, and she had just played it. Outside the studio, Marcus monitored 30 simultaneous news alerts. In one of them, the Pentagon had just denied any involvement. In Glass Halo? In another, a UN emergency summit was called for 48 hours later. But the most telling development was subtler. Several prominent celebrities quietly posted black squares or single-word captions like "listening," "awake," and "she's right." Jennifer ended her broadcast the way no one expected, not with more fire, but with silence. She looked directly into the camera and said, "I'm not afraid of what they'll say now. I'm afraid of what they've already done to all of you. Us, without us noticing." She paused. One final breath. "Now you know." And with that, the feed ended. In the seconds after the screen went black, the world was changed. In London, stock markets paused, trading. In Buenos Aires, tens of thousands gathered in the plaza, silent, holding candles. In Washington, the president was handed a printed brief titled Operation Echo Collapse: Risk of Narrative Reversal. At a small studio in Queens, a podcast host began recording an emergency episode. Jennifer Lopez just did what no whistleblower, no politician, and no world leader has ever managed. She didn't just speak the truth. She made us feel it. Days later, independent investigations would begin. Officials would be dismissed, lawsuits filed, denials issued. But it wouldn't matter, because the public no longer trusted the echo. They trusted the signal, and for the first time in decades, it had come not from a government or a newsroom or a leaked file. It had come from a stage, from a woman who refused to stay silent.